Hello, students. In today's lecture, we are going to learn about mechanical properties of solids. NCERT section 8.5.5 to 8.6. This is our disclaimer. Learning objectives. By the end of this lecture, you will be able to understand the concepts of elastic potential energy in a stretched wire and applications of elastic behavior of materials. In today's lecture, we will cover first 8.5.5 elastic potential energy in a stretched wire. After that, we will learn 8.6 applications of elastic behavior of materials. So let's start with the lecture. So our aim is to understand the elastic potential energy in a stretched wire. So by considering what happens when we stretch a wire, think about it. When you pull on a wire, you are doing work against the internal forces that try to restore the wire to its original shape. These internal forces are what make the wire want to return to its original length after being stretched. The work you do to stretch the wire does not just disappear. It gets stored inside the wire as elastic potential energy. This stored energy is what allows the wire to snap back to its original shape when you let go. So now let's move on the derivation part. We will see how to calculate the elastic potential energy stored in a stretched wire. So consider a wire with original length L and area, cross-sectional area A. If we stretch it by a length small l, we can visualize this with the figure as shown here. The stretching causes the wire to become longer, and the amount it stretches depends on the force applied and the properties of the material. So the cross-sectional area A and the length after stretching become capital L plus small l. So Young's modulus represented by Y is a measure of how stiff a material is. So the formula is Y equal to FL divided by A into delta L. A higher Young's modulus means the material is stiffer. Alright, and stretches less for the same force. Here we are continuing the derivation of elastic potential energy for stretched wire. Young's modulus is Y equal to FL divided by A into delta L. We know this formula. Alright. So rearranging the formula, you will be get F is equal to Y into AL divided by capital L. So look at here, delta L is equal to small l. Alright. So this shows that the force required depends directly on the material stiffness Y. The area here A and extension L, but is inversely proportional to original length L. So work done dW for a small extension dl is dW equal to FdL. Alright. So dW equal to Y into AL divided by L into DL. This connects the materials properties and the geometry of the wire directly to the work done during stretching. So the amount of work done W in increasing the length of the wire from L to L plus L, capital L to capital L plus small l. So total work done in stretching the wire from no extension. So we can say L equal to 0 to L equal to L. We use an integral. The formula here W equal to integration 0 to L. So YAL divided by L into DL. So here we can take the constants YA and L outside the integral, since they don't change as the wire stretches. This gives us W equal to Y into A divided by capital L, integration 0 to L LDL. So solving this, you will be get W equal to YA divided by L into L square divided by 2, lower limit 0 to upper limit L. Now let's look at the work done W in stretching a wire from its original length L equal to 0 to new length L. The formula here is W equal to YA divided by L into L square divided by 2, lower limit 0 to upper limit capital small l. So just put the limits, you will be get W equal to YA into divided by L into L square minus 0 divided by 2. This means the work done depends on the square of the extension. So if you double the extension, the energy stored increases by 4 times. Here, the final simplified formula W equal to YA divided by L into L square by 2. Remember this, this gives us the elastic potential energy stored in the wire when it is stretched by a length L. The energy stored increases rapidly as the wire is stretched more. Alright. So small increases in length can lead to much larger increases in stored energy. Now, work done in stretching the wire. So we have the formula W equal to YA divided by L into L square by 2. So let's rewrite the formula in a slightly different form. So W equal to 1 by 2 into Y into L by L whole square into AL. Alright. So here this form makes it easier to see how strain affects the work done. So W equal to 1 by 2 into Young's modulus into strain square into volume of the wire. Alright. And if we talk about an example, so we can say a thicker or longer wire stores more energy for the same strain. So now we use the symbols to make the formula even more concise. So W equal to 1 by 2 into Y into here epsilon square into V. Alright, V is the volume of the wire. This is the standard way to express elastic potential energy in a stretched wire. Now we see another useful form. So W equal to 1 by 2 into sigma into epsilon into V. Here Y equal to sigma upon epsilon. Alright. Now let's look at the formula for the work done in stretching a wire, which is stored as a potential energy. The formula is U equal to 1 by 2 into sigma into epsilon into V. Here, U is the elastic potential energy in joules. Sigma is the stress applied to the wire in newtons per square meter. Epsilon is the strain. Alright. And V is the volume of the wire in cubic meter. So notice that the energy stored depends on both how much force we apply and how much the wire stretches. Elastic potential energy density. So elastic potential energy density defined as the elastic potential energy per unit volume. So U equal to capital U divided by P. This tells us how much energy is stored in each cubic meter of the material. Let's substitute the expression for U into our formula for U. So we get U equal to 1 by 2 into sigma into epsilon into V and divided by V. So V cancel out. Alright. So the remaining terms U equal to 1 by 2 into sigma into epsilon. So students, now we will look the applications of elastic behaviors of material. So let's examine how elastic behavior affects our daily life. For example, when you sit on a chair, the material bends slightly under your weight, but returns to its original shape when you stand up. Yes or no? So, all engineering designs require precise knowledge of the elastic behavior of material. Engineers need to predict how much a bridge will bend under cars or how much a spring will stretch in a machine. For example, when designing a building, engineers must calculate the strength of columns, beams, and supports. They use information about the elastic properties of materials like steel and concrete to make sure the structure can handle loads without breaking or deforming too much. Now, first, let's focus on cranes and lifts. These are machines we see at construction sites or in uh, warehouses, and they are used to lift and move heavy objects. Cranes are designed to lift and move very heavy loads from one place to another. So take a look at this figure. It shows a crane lifting a load, and you can see the ropes under tension. The here elastic limit in crane ropes under heavy load. So the ropes in cranes are pulled up using a system or pulleys and motors. The pulleys help change the direction of the force and make it easier to lift heavy loads, while the motors provide the power needed. Now let's imagine we want to build a crane that can lift up to 10 tons. Remember, 1 metric ton is equal to 1000 kilograms. So that's a total of 10,000 kilograms. So this huge weight puts a lot of stress on the ropes. So we need to carefully consider the materials and design. To handle such heavy loads, the ropes used in cranes are made of steel and are quite thick. A steel is chosen because it has a high elastic limit. and can withstand large forces without breaking. The thickness of the rope is not random, calculated based on how much load it needs to carry. The required thickness is determined by both the elastic limit of the steel and this safety margin, ensuring the rope won't stretch too much or snap. So stress is equal to load upon area. For a given load, the area of the rope must be large so that the stress always well below the elastic limit of the material. If the stress goes above this limit, the rope could stretch permanently or even break. Now, let's continue looking at cranes and lifts. These are the machines that lift heavy loads, and their safety depends on the materials used in their construction. When making a crane, it's essential that the extension or stretching of the material does not go beyond its elastic limit. The elastic limit is the maximum amount a material can stretch and still return to its original shape. For example, mild steel is commonly used in ropes and cables for cranes. All right, because it has a high yield strength. Yield strength means the maximum stress a material can handle before it starts to deform permanently. For mild steel, the value is about 300 million newtons per square or 300 into 10 raised to the power 6 newton per meter square. To ensure safety, we need to calculate the minimum area of the rope's cross section. The formula is area A must be greater than or equal to the weight W divided by the yield strength sigma. Alright, yield strength sigma y. In other words, A is greater than or equal to W divided by sigma y, which is also equal to mass times gravity divided by sigma y. This formula helps us choose a rope that won't break under the load. So A is greater than equal to W divided by sigma y. So just put the values and you will be get the after calculating, we find that the area should be at least 3.3 times 10 to the power of minus 4 square meters, corresponding to a radius of about 1 centimeter for a rope of circular cross section. Now, let's talk about bridges. Bridges are a great example of how we use the elastic properties of materials in engineering. When we design a bridge, we need to make sure it can handle different forces without permanently bending or breaking. So, bridges has to be designed such that it can withstand the load of the flowing traffic, the force of binds, and its own weight. Similarly, when we design buildings, we use beams and columns to support the structure. Whether we are talking about cranes, bridges, or buildings, the main challenge is to prevent beams from bending too much under a load. If a beam bends too far, it can become unsafe or even fail. Remember, a bridge not only has to support the weight of the traffic moving across it, but also its uh, own weight. Engineers must calculate the total load and make sure the materials used can handle it without permanent deformation. Also, beams in construction must be designed so they don't bend excessively or break under load. Now, we will understanding the structural design of beams. So now let's look at the beam supported at both ends and loaded at the center, as on the figure. Imagine a wooden plank uh, resting on two supports with a weight placed in the middle. This setup helps us study how the beams bend or sags under the load. Notice how the force is applied right at the center and the supports are near the end. This is a common way to test the strength and flexibility of the material. So in the figure 8.6, a beam supported at the ends and the loaded at the center and weight is W. Here we have a bar with length L, width B and depth D. When we place a force W at the center, the bar bends downwards by an amount delta. Alright, the formula shown delta is equal to W into L cube divided by 4B D cube into Y. And this formula tells us how much the bar will sag. In this formula, W is the load in newtons, L is the length in meters, B is the width in meters, and D is the depth in meters, and Y is Young's modulus in Pascal, which measures the stiffness of the material. Alright, so this is very important formula. Now, look at this figure 8.6. It shows a beam supported at both ends with load placed at the right in the center. And the formula delta is equal to WL cube divided by 4BD cube into Y. So from this equation 8.16, to reduce the bending for a given load, alright, we should use a formula. We should use a material with a large Young's modulus Y. Alright, Young's modulus is a measure of how stiff or rigid a material. The higher the value, the less it bends. For a given material, increasing the depth D rather than the breadth B is more effective in reducing the bending. Alright, so increasing the depth D of the beam is much more effective than increasing the breadth. This is why beams are often taller than they are wider. So as del is the proportional to D raised to the power minus 3 and only to B raised to the power minus 1. This means that making the beam deeper reduces the bending much more than making it wider. Now, consider what happens when we increase the depth of a beam or a bar in a structure. If the load or force applied is not placed exactly in the right spot, which is very hard to do in something like a bridge with moving traffic, the way the bar handles the force can change. So deep bar may bend as on figure 8.7b called buckling. Alright, so buckling is the sudden unstable deformation or collapse of a structural component under a critical compressive load, causing a change in shape or rather than a simple yield or structure. So to avoid this, a common compromise is the cross-sectional area shape. So figure 8.7c shows a special cross-sectional shape that is commonly used. This shape is a compromise between strength and material use. Unlike a simple rectangle or a thin bar, this design helps prevent problems like buckling. This particular shape gives us a large surface area to bear loads, meaning it can support more weight at the same time. It has enough depth or thickness to resist bending. Another advantage of this shape is that it reduces the overall weight of the beam. By removing unnecessary material, we keep the beam strong but make it lighter, which also lowers the cost. So it's important to note that pillars or columns are also widely used in buildings and bridges to support loads. These vertical supports helps distribute the weight and keep structure stable. Now, let's look at how elastic properties are considered in the design of bridges and buildings. Engineers must think about the conditions the structure will face, the cost, how long the materials will last, and how reliable they are. So look at the figure showing two types of pillars, one with rounded ends and one with distributed ends. The shape and design of these pillars affect how they handle forces and distribute weight. So maximum height of mountains on the earth. It means what? So we can say uh, the height is suppose 10 kilometers. So this limit can be explained by the elastic properties of rocks. If a mountain were much taller, the rocks at the base would be unable to support the weight above them. They would deform or even flow under the pressure. It's important to note that the base of a mountain does not experience uniform compression. Instead, there is some shearing stress, which means the rocks can slowly shift or flow under the immense pressure. So, now we will understand the applications of elastic behavior of material. So, stress due to all the material on the top should be less than the critical shearing stress at which the rock flow. At the bottom of mountain of height h, the force per unit area due to weight of the mountain is h rho g, where rho is the density of material of the mountain and g is the acceleration due to gravity. It's important to note that the material at the bottom of the mountain experiences this force mainly in the vertical direction because of the weight above. The sides of the mountain are exposed to the air and are not confined, so they are considered free. Because of sides are free and the force is vertical, this situation is not the same as pressure of bulk compression, where a material is squeezed from all sides. Here, the stress is directional, uh, mainly downward. So, there is a shear component approximately h rho g itself. Now, the elastic limit for a typical rock is 30 into 10 raised to the power 7 Newton per meter square. Equating this to h rho g with rho equal to 3 into 10 raised to the power 3 kilogram per meter cube gives h rho g equal to 30 into 10 raised to the power 7 Newton per meter square. So just substitute the values and rearrange the formula. You will be get h is equal to 10 kilometer, which is more than the height of f. Now at the end of the lecture, we will see some points to remember from. So elastic potential energy is stored in a wire when work is done against internal restoring forces during stretching. Elastic potential energy in a stretched wire. Work done in stretching a wire is stored as elastic potential energy given by U equal to 1 by 2 into stress into strain into volume. Elastic potential energy density, uh, energy stored per unit volume of stressed material, expressed as U equal to 1 by 2 into stress into strain. Applications in cranes and lifts, steel ropes must be thick enough to keep stress below elastic limit with safety factor. Bridges design, uh, sag in beams is minimized by using high Young's modulus material and increasing beam depth. So I-shaped here, I-shape girders provide optimal strength to weight ratio by concreting material at top and bottom where stress is greatest. And beam bending can be minimized using materials with a high Young's modulus and increasing depth. Structural design must account for both structure's weight and additional loads during use. Now here we have practice questions. First, wire of length 2 meter and cross sectional area 0.5 square is stretched by 0.1 mm. If Young's modulus of the material is 2 into 10 raised to the power 11 Newton per meter square, calculate the elastic potential energy stored in the wire. Why are I-shaped girders preferred in bridges construction over solid rectangular beams of the same weight? What is the elastic potential energy density? Write its formula in terms of stress and strain. Theoretical maximum height of mountains on Earth is approximately 10 km. Explain why mountains cannot grow taller than its limit using the concept of elastic. Steel cable is used to lift a heavy load in a crane. If the breaking stress of the steel is 7 into 10 raised to the power 8 Newton per meter square and a safety factor is 10 is used, what is the maximum working stress allowed? Alright, so these are the practice questions. And last, for a beam of length L, if the depth D is tripled, why, what factor will the seg del decrease? Alright, thank you for your attention. I hope this lesson was helpful. Thank you.